Hello and welcome to the British Dyslexia Association's Dyslexia Awareness Week bite-sized webinars for adults and employers. So today for Magic Monday, we're going to be focusing on the basics. So what is dyslexia? Dyslexia is essentially a combination of abilities and difficulties. So everybody is unique and everybody has a different profile. Sometimes within dyslexia, we tend to focus on all of the negatives, the things that somebody might struggle with or have difficulty with. But actually, associated with dyslexia are a huge range of abilities as well. And we'll be focusing on those later on this week. It occurs independent of ability and social economic background. So you can be hugely intelligent and be dyslexic, or you can be equally less intelligent and still be dyslexic. Basically, there is no correlation between ability and dyslexia, and you'll find people right the way across the spectrum. Equally, there's no correlation between social economic background either. So we find individuals who are dyslexic in all walks of life and within all professional sectors. Dyslexia also occurs with other similar difficulties, so things like dyspraxia, which is challenges with gross and fine motor movement, dyscalculia, which are challenges with number and number sense. And a more modern way of thinking about these things is to think of them as all being interrelated and overlapping, and they form what we call the broader neurodiversity agenda. As I've said before, every individual is likely to be different, just as every human being is likely to be different. We're all shaped by a whole range of different factors, depending on our social experience, our education, the opportunities that are afforded to us. So everybody is likely to be different. It would be great if we could give you a template for dyslexia and say, do this, this, and this, and all will be good. Unfortunately, everyone is different, so the pattern of support that those individuals will require is also likely to be different. Dyslexia is also included within the Equality Act, so it is classed as a disability because it can have a profound impact on somebody's day-to-day living. So there are a legal framework that surrounds dyslexia. In terms of how common is it, so approximately 10 to sort of 14% of the population are dyslexic or have the genetic predisposition to dyslexia. Out of that, some 4% are likely to be seriously affected. So the most obvious signs of that would be somebody who really struggled to acquire literacy skill. Difficulties in acquiring literacy are not exactly what dyslexia is, but it is one of the most common sort of manifestations of dyslexia. So we usually talk about 10 to 15% of the population as being dyslexic. I also mentioned previously that dyslexia comes with potential abilities, and what we tend to see are characteristics associated with individuals who are highly determined or have grit. Some would say this is because many such individuals have had a series of knockbacks and challenges within education and have therefore become highly determined to overcome those challenges. Equally, we see individuals who are empathetic. They have the ability to relate to individuals and understand alternative perspectives from those that they work with or are involved with. We also see skills in atypical problem solving. This is quite often because the dyslexic brain works in a different way. It makes different and unusual connections, which makes it easier for individuals to see alternative solutions to problems and therefore come up with alternative solutions or creative solutions. So whilst we also see a higher number of dyslexic individuals within the creative field, what we also see are creative thinkers, the ability to see concepts in a different way, to make unusual connections. Linked to this also are individuals who we would describe as big picture thinkers, so are very good at taking the overview of seeing the wider implications of a situation or a problem, and being able to take the broad view. We also describe some individuals being good procrastinators, which sounds a little bit strange, but essentially what we mean by this is that individuals who take the time to mull over a solution and are then good at communicating those thoughts and ideas to others. And one of the keys here is people who are exceptional in the right niche. So where an individual finds their spot, be it at work or within their leisure activities, quite often we see this exceptional ability and skill. And we can sort of characterize that by looking at all of the potentially successful dyslexic individuals who are successful in things like the arts. So you've got actors, actresses, entrepreneurs, and we often quote people like Richard Branson and Tom Cruise, who are also dyslexic. However, there are potential challenges. Some of these challenges are associated with literacy issues. So for many adults, although they have developed the skills of reading and writing, there are sometimes residual difficulties around the speed by which they can do these things. So reading speed might be a little bit slower, comprehension speed might be a little bit slower. So quite often adults will tell us that they have to read things a number of times in order to fully understand and respond to information. And this can be particularly the case if an individual is under pressure. We sometimes see numeracy issues, particularly associated with things like mental maths, so where somebody has to hold information in their head and do calculations. Things like time management, measuring of how long something should take or how long they've spent on a particular task. And also sometimes issues with transcribing numbers accurately. One of the most significant things that we see within a workplace context is quite often difficulties with organisation skills. So problems with time management, knowing what to do first and the priorities of a particular role, or multitasking, where there are a number of competing priorities, can be particularly difficult. Difficulties with short-term memory and working memory are also quite often a characteristic of dyslexia. So somebody who appears frequently forgetful, who maybe loses the thread of conversations or has difficulty following a list of instructions. Memory can be one of the most sort of significant challenges within the workplace because we have so much to remember on a daily basis. But equally, it's one of the areas where the implementation of strategies to support this can be particularly effective. We also see sometimes issues with processing skills, particularly around speed. So how quickly somebody's brain can process visual or auditory information. So, for example, in a very busy meeting, it might be that somebody struggles to follow the thread of the information being given, or it might be within a work setting that they struggle to filter out background noise or disturbance. So why focus on dyslexia? Well, dyslexia, like many other neurodiverse differences, demonstrates for an employer that they value the differences that their employees bring to the workplace. It sees people as individuals rather than just a number, and as such it improves morale, motivation, and also where effective strategies are deployed, it can really improve efficiency as well. What we find with a lot of our dyslexic adults that we speak to at the BDA is that they often feel quite stressed within the working environment. They are quite often working very, very hard to cover up their perceived difficulties or to compensate, and in some cases overcompensate. And the effect of that is to increase stress levels, which ultimately, while some stress is good for us, can have health-related difficulties and lead to time off work. So reducing the stress within a workplace can only be beneficial. Equally, as an employer, becoming dyslexia friendly will enable you to make reasonable adjustments and meet the requirements of disability law. So ensure that you comply with the legislation associated with disability is really important. And also one thing to remember here is that if 10% of your employees are dyslexic, so are 10% of your customers. So effectively, making sure that how you operate and the services or goods that you provide are dyslexia friendly can quite significantly give you a competitive advantage. So being dyslexia friendly is worthwhile, not just from the point of view of your employees, but also from the point of view of being competitive. In terms of the legal framework of dyslexia, dyslexia is encompassed within the Equality Act 2010. So therefore, it is unlawful to discriminate against people with disabilities in employment and also in relation to rights to access to goods, facilities, services and premises. So essentially, employers must not treat those with disabilities any less favourably than anyone else, and there is also an obligation to provide reasonable adjustments. And that's an area that we'll be exploring in another webinar later on this week. Dyslexia really shouldn't be seen as a drawback, because what it does mean, as this quote describes, is that there is the potential that a huge pool of talent is being missed out on. Individuals that can bring a new, unique perspective to the workplace or unique perspective to problem solving can give companies very much a competitive advantage. So they should be seen as a huge pool of talent upon which organisations can draw. Equally, diversity should be valued. It is best practice, and having a wide variety of employees within an organisation brings a unique perspective that enhances culture and, as it says here, ultimately improves the bottom line. And that's what most organisations will be striving to achieve. So valuing difference, valuing neurodiversity is really important in today's very competitive marketplace. For more information and additional resources, on the BDA website we have pages for employers that gives a huge amount of information. We also have pages for individuals and also for parents. And if you're interested in ensuring that the information that you're producing is dyslexia friendly, then you have the link to our dyslexia friendly style guide there. For further information, say the website as a whole has a huge array of information. The BDA also has a helpline that is available free of charge for people to access advice and support. For training, please do contact our training team, and for assessments, we have the assessments team there. And for those organisations who really want to make a commitment to becoming dyslexia friendly, then please contact Joanne and inquire about our Dyslexia Smart Awards. Thank you very much, and hopefully you found this information useful.